Ta-da. live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve. Don't mind me being out of breath. Literally 10 seconds before the show started, I saw my cat was playing with a thumbtack, and that could have ended badly. It is Sleepless with Steve, live and in living color on YouTube, wherever you may be, however you may be watching, listening to us tonight. Live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. Wouldn't be able to do this without my two phenomenal friends first, co-host second. Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso on the theater screen. Got a good show for you today. We are right in the middle, smack dab in the middle of spooky season. Got Halloween Ends coming out this weekend, which I'm pumped for, especially after just rewatching Halloween Kills and liking it all over again. Damn the haters on that one. That movie got eviscerated, too, by critics. And, they were sipping haterade on that movie, and I kind of like it more than the first one that David Gordon Green did.
Whoa, I won't go that far, but it's good. I had a good time with it.
I kind of like it more than I liked the first one. I'm not going to lie here, okay? I think it's good. We were talking, actually, in the green room, the three of us. And if I got a lot going on this month, so I really didn't plan like a Halloween movie watching marathon. I wonder if next year, it would have been perfect to do it this year with Halloween Ends coming out. I think next year I'm going to go back and rewatch and re-review all the Halloween movies whilst reading the David Gordon Green trilogy, the novelizations of the trilogy. I think I'm going to do that next October. That I think would be very fun because I've seen most of the Halloween sequels. I haven't seen all of them. And allegedly Halloween Ends this weekend, unless this thing makes gobs of money, then they'll do Halloween Ends Part 2, or they'll get, I don't know, they'll get Chris Rock to do the reboot. Who knows? But we are live tonight. We are talking David O. Russell's new movie, Amsterdam. Dom's going to provide some historical context to Amsterdam, too. I was not aware of this story going into it. I really wasn't. So I was on Wikipedia Friday evening, ahead of writing my review, reading about Business Plot, or the Business Plot as it's known. I'd never heard of that before, and I think it's fascinating. A little bit more fascinating than the David O. Russell movie, but we'll get to that. And then we got some news that's going to bring my piss to a boil about Richard Linklater's Apollo 10.5. If you haven't already heard, I don't want to go into it now because it's going to piss me off. But that's been, the internet's outraged about what Devontae Adams did at the Raiders game and Marvel movies getting delayed. Nobody's talking about the almighty Link getting screwed over by the Academy. And I will be in the lone outrage corner. That's what outraged Steve Pulaski this week. But we will get to that in a little while after our review of Amsterdam. First things first, Dominic, how are you?
I'm doing well. It has been a busy week. This Friday, my best man is himself getting married. And then the week after, another member of my wedding party, she is getting married the following weekend. So it's just nonstop weddings for the next 2 weeks, and which is a lot. Thankfully, my involvement is not as involved. It's more laid back, so I don't necessarily have to be. One of them, I'm flying out to Pennsylvania for that, so that's going to be fun. But essentially, just everything, the nexus of my next 2 weeks are just going to be centered around that whole situation. So I don't know, as we get older and as our friends get married, if they get married, that's going to be the way of the world of how it goes. So, come December, come January, I know my wedding party is going to do the same for me. So I can't wait to see both you gentlemen on the dance floor at my reception.
I don't care if it's negative 10 degrees the day of your wedding, as long as there's no snow. Because that's what I've been worried about. I don't want to speak it into existence, but that's the risk you run.
It is
a winter wedding in the Midwest. So I hope it's optimal travel conditions for all involved.
Yeah, but we shall see.
If nothing else, I will get you a very expensive gift off your registry.
Thank you.
And Joseph, how are you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing really good. I had a very fun weekend. I got to go down to our old college town and go to the Napier Nuts and Sweet store. I see that censored on my camera. Okay.
Censor? How's Zoom gonna censor these nuts?
I guess we didn't get the sponsor for them. But yeah, no, I got some candy. I got to eat at a really nice brunch place. Originally, my mom and I were just trying to go there just for lunch, and they're like, "No, we're only serving brunch right now." It was a fifth floor restaurant. By
Such a Naperville thing.
It really
such a
is,
Naperville thing.
It's literally attached to Hotel Indigo down there. It was very nice. I forgot the name of it, but it's on the fifth floor of that hotel, and it's super nice. If you're ever down there in Naperville, I highly suggest checking it out. Wish I had the name to help even more. But yeah, no, I had a relaxing weekend with that. Got to go see the movie that we're reviewing tonight. Got to meet a certain someone. Hope you're watching right now. And then there was yeah, no, I mean it's just been a very relaxing weekend. Event season at my work is dying down, thank God. We only have one more left this year, and I won't have another event until April of next year. Thank God. So I can't wait for that to happen.
Bless the beast. Bless the beast on that, man. Because I know you were working your ass off there the last several months.
Oh yeah.
So tip of the cap to that. Hopefully it's a fruitful off season, if nothing else. Hopefully it's shaping up to be, if nothing else, too.
It looks like it.
Good to hear. I guess we will dive into Amsterdam over here. The new David O. Russell movie. This is David O. Russell's first movie in 7 years. The last movie he did was Joy with Jennifer Lawrence, which a lot of people forgot about. A lot of people didn't see it. I remember it came out on Christmas, and that was a movie too that it after The Fighter, which was great, Silver Linings Playbook, and then American Hustle. That was kind of like the David O. Russell like trifecta in terms of critical praise, box office success, and then awards as well. Joy was really like, I don't know, I always go back to it being really mismarketed because I did not know until I saw the damn movie that it was about Joy Mangano, the business mogul who really helped galvanize and start HSN, the home shopping network, and almost that entire industry. I didn't realize that. I thought it was just sort of and maybe I was the dumb one over here, but I didn't think the trailers communicated that particularly well.
They did not. They absolutely did not. It was all just Jennifer Lawrence being Jennifer Lawrence. That's pretty much all the marketing was. And I think even the trailers.
There was even Bradley Cooper, but you didn't get to hear Bradley Cooper. You just saw Bradley Cooper going, and I was like, I don't know what this movie is, but I like Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence, so...
That thing was weird. I remember seeing that on Christmas with my mother, and I liked it for the most part. But I just remember, I totally just for seeing this trailer as much as I do going to the movies and stuff. I remember thinking at the time, like, I don't know anything about this movie aside from the fact that Jennifer Lawrence is in it, and Bradley Cooper allegedly, like Joe said, that very brief shot of him in the trailer. I'm like, oh, he at least was on set for a day. But now we have Amsterdam, which is the latest ensemble from David O. Russell, and. Oh, man, I know we're not going to do box office analysis, but holy crap, is this movie going to lose some money? Thank God this isn't Warner Brothers, because holy crap, man. This thing is probably going to lose almost $100 million.
One of the biggest bombs of the year.
Of the year of the last decade, too. I mean, crap, man. I mean, even $80 million budget, it's easily over 100 with marketing, and it only made so far 11 million. Like, man, this thing is going to tank. That says Movie 43 has a movie with so many stars just, like, completely falling fat on its face. But I'm just going to give you the cast list over here because this is like, when people ask what Amsterdam's about, they're just going to say, oh, Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Chris Rock, Anya Taylor-Joy, Zoe Saldana, Mike Myers, Michael Shannon, the GOAT, Timothy Olyphant, Taylor Swift, Rami Malek, Ed Begley Jr., who's dead most of the movie, Robert De Niro, and Andrea Riseborough. They're going to say they all teamed up to make one of the most aggressively mediocre movies this year. Because, man, oh, man, my zinger, and I'm not a zinger critic to begin with. I usually don't have too great of one-liners, or I don't think about them until weeks later. But it came to mind when I was watching Amsterdam in the theater last Friday. I was like, this is kind of like kids say the darndest things, except it's A-list actors never shut the hell up. Like nobody stops talking. There is not 3 seconds of silence. People talk more than I do in this movie. Constant talking, and I was with it for maybe 30 minutes. I was with it. But then the movie really starts to fall apart once it flashes back in the very beginning, and then once it brings you back to the present about 25 minutes later. In short, the movie is about three people that get wrapped up in a murder, a very high, how do I word this?
High profile.
A very high profile. That's what I was looking for. High profile murder, but they don't think of it like that initially until they start going down the rabbit hole of investigating. And again, the movie is set in 1933 New York, but then it goes back to 1918 Europe to sort of contextualize the friendship between Bale and Washington's characters and Margot Robbie. And then it goes back in the foreground, and then it becomes this massive political conspiracy plot, which is, as I referred to, or as is known in historical context, business plot. I guess before I go any further, I'll throw it over to you, Dom. The business plot. You are the historian of the three of us, to say the least. You even impress me too with your political and historical knowledge. For those unaware, what is the business plot?
So at the heart of it, the business plot is a moment in time where a bunch of like rich motherfuckers. I'll use the F-bomb for these guys.
He's quoting Wikipedia right here.
Yeah. These are the, I wouldn't even say the Bezos or the Musks of their time, because we know those names. These are the unnamed, unknown to the public world, the back room, the true, the real, the people who pulled the strings in terms of America's business and resources and all that stuff, telecommunications, all that stuff. It's when they tried to use extremely angry and disaffected World War I veterans to try and take over the United States government using a popular Marine Corps general, Smedley Butler, as the figurehead. And it was only through the fact that they chose the wrong guy for the job. Smedley Butler had enough, in a rare case of the military industrial complex, churning out someone who's actually good out, actually like trying to expose this plot and stopping it dead in its tracks, much like you see in the movie. And there's a whole lot of more background. I'm going to try to keep it really brief because I do want to keep this centered around the movie. You can find more stuff online about it. But essentially, yeah, disaffected veterans in a country that is suffering economic hardship, and then people want to find meanwhile, rich people want to find their answer through a strong man. Where have you heard that story before? Oh, it's actually happening exactly at the same time all the way in Europe. And it's a story that does not get told often because the truth is nothing really came of it. There wasn't enough evidence. There wasn't enough, paper trail to actually put these guys behind bars. Also, they were too rich to put behind bars is the truth in the matter of it. But it is one of those conspiracies that, because it's too straightforward, it's not fun enough, it's not sexy enough, it's not outrageous enough. No one really wants to talk about. No one really finds entertainment in it. It's not like the moon landing or Jewish space lasers or something like that. It's not fun enough, right? And also, it doesn't have enough minorities. But it's one of those things that, honestly, even Congress was like, we can't do anything here. But this definitely probably did happen behind the scenes, just so you know. And it really took a guy like Smedley Butler, Marine Corps General Smedley Butler, recipient of the Medal of Honor, and someone he himself, he participated in a lot of America's wheeling and dealing throughout the Caribbean. He never actually saw much action in World War I. He was more of a backline general, because by the time World War I happened, he was already didn't have much. It was already kind of older, but he got his medals and made his mark in history by participating in America's kind of pillage of the Caribbean, the Banana Wars. If that's a whole thing in and of itself, the conquest of the Caribbean and the dictatorships and the pushes and all that stuff there. I feel my phone ringing, which I'm pretty sure is the CIA about to take me out here. But regardless, anyway, all that being said, the whole point I'm trying to make is to connect it back to the movie Amsterdam, is that this really did happen. And there is this fermenting of the interwar period. We talk about the interwar period in a European context, and rightfully so, because there was a crap ton happening in Europe, way more than our history classes tell us. But a lot of that stuff was happening in America as well. There was a lot of fascist movement. There was a lot of open Nazi, fascist sympathies, to the point where we'll get into this, but at some point in the last third of the movie, a bunch of Nazis just kind of show up suddenly in a way that just comes out of nowhere. But those guys really were there in real life. In fact, there's another great short film called, I don't know if it was considered for the Oscars, but it's called A Night at the Garden, I believe. And it's a very short film, but it shows actual Madison Square Garden footage, surviving footage of a Nazi rally in New York City at Madison Square Garden, and it's straight up, like, literally hundreds, if not thousands, of Nazis, straight up Nazis, like armband wearing Nazis, in the garden, and you've got the Nazi flag being flown next to the American flag, and with George Washington being, it's the appropriation of American culture and putting it in that way. And again, I could go into more rabbit holes. I could talk about the Silver Legion of America. I could talk about George Henry Rockwell, but I won't.
For what it's worth, Night at the Garden is only 7 minutes long. Mm-hmm. It did receive the nomination for Best Documentary Short in 2017, and it's available on YouTube via PBS and Vimeo.
Yeah, it's worth your 7 minutes, 100%.
I might have to check this out tomorrow, because this looks fascinating.
It's extremely simple. If anything, it's just some, not to degrade the work here done, but it's pretty much just text over the surviving footage, but it still impacts you greatly, because it's like, it's not like America's rah anti-Nazism the whole way through, like it was deep in the balls of World War II. No, there was maybe not a chance, looking at it macro historically, but it's stronger than you think. And there's there's a great saying that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And to shift it back to Amsterdam, this is the backdrop of the movie, the true backdrop of the movie, that I wish the freaking movie would actually focus on more. This whole thing is an unfocused mess. Amsterdam by David O. Russell is just one of the sloppiest movies, with so much raw talent, so much raw energy, so much raw potential in its script, in its story, in its message, in its talent, that just gets dropped all over, like a server at a banquet hall, just an overflowing plate of all sorts of dips and drinks and food, just all over the floor of this restaurant. And it's a shame to see, man.
Yeah, it's incredible how much talent's in this movie too. But it goes back, and I think it got a lot of people to realize this. The few that did wind up seeing it, is that no matter how many A-list actors you throw into a movie, the writing isn't going to say, they're not going to rescue writing. They're not going to rescue writing flaws, pacing flaws. Russell doesn't, his name is Russell. I keep wanting to say Russell, but Russell wants to, like, he wants to put everything in this movie, but this is a massive story. In his defense, this is a massive story with a lot of layers and a lot of things that, I mean, truth be told, we probably still don't know to this day. We're not in that sphere, but he needed to almost simplify this in a way that, or at least maybe narrow down the characters and simplify, because I think I would go as far as say the bulk of Americans do not know about the business plot, and don't know, I mean, of all the massive World War II era, that's one of the historical elements that isn't often highlighted in textbooks here. He could have taken, at least, maybe not creative liberties is the right word, but he could have at least condense the story to be more palatable. I say all this not to be redundant over here, because we got to give Joe his opening statement over here. But what are you going to say, Dom?
I was just going to say real quick, historically, the business plot, Russell, and I'm doing it too. Russell, and I don't mind that he did this specific thing, which is that he combines the business plot with the Nazi ideology. The business plot was more of a apolitical. It's just rich people, really, really, really mega rich people, just wanting to keep their profits going and keep America, under their control because they were all afraid of FDR and the New Deal. That was their major fear. FDR is communism, which, if you know anything about FDR, Jesus Christ, that's just how not even close. But in any case, and meanwhile, the whole Nazi thing, the whole Nazi angle, that's kind of a more separate thing, and he kind of combined it there. I understand why he did it because Nazis are kind of sexier in that sense. But that's another thing. But yeah, dude, it's amazing how much, I will even go to say, don't even make it about the business plot, or make it purely focused on the business plot. Maybe there's a way to do it, but I could not find any traces of that being possible here. Joe, what do you think?
So Taylor Swift's in this movie, and I think that's pretty cool, man. As a all right, look, so I can see where you guys are swinging with this movie. Dom saw the potential that was just totally dropped by the filmmakers. Steve, you're bringing up criticisms that I've seen from a lot of people that I somewhat feel. But I actually did like this movie for the most part. I actually did enjoy. If there's one reason why, and it's the screen I'm going to show right now, it is because of these three actors, mainly Bale, Roby. They're really carrying this movie throughout this whole time. Washington's good, don't get me wrong. I feel like, though, ever since BlacKkKlansman, I haven't seen John David Washington really kind of just own a role like his dad does, or just anybody that he's alongside with.
Kind of take the next step.
Yeah.
In so many words.
Like, I thought him and Driver were great together in BlacKkKlansman, but, ever since then, it's like Tenet, didn't think like he was, I mean, that's also because of the writing of Tenet, but like even Pattinson, I thought was way more interesting and just had way more personality to his character. And in here, I mean, he's going up against two people who I feel like are turning out some of the best performances in Hollywood right now, especially Bale. And it's just like the guy is, on the lower end, but he can hold his own. It really just comes down to that I had fun with these performances and just seeing at least how crazy this story does get at points, and even just some of the weird filmmaking choices they do. Now, I will say, what this movie reminded me of is if David O. Russell was handed a Coen Brothers script and he wanted to make a Coen Brother movie without any of the brothers with him.
That's a great angle.
That's a great angle right there. Nice job. I didn't even.
Here's the thing. I'll even counter that. I agree with it, but I'm going to counter that slightly by saying he's done this before. He did American Hustle, and I loved American Hustle.
And I know plenty of people who hate American Hustle for the same reasons they hate this movie. I just think American Hustle was tighter. It got straight to the point.
Yes.
I think the time period was just not much better, but it was utilized better in American Hustle than here.
American Hustle is a semi-true story, like he does here in Amsterdam,
Yeah.
where he changes things a little bit. He also changed things in American Hustle, but the heart of it is true. There was a giant sting operation in the East Coast for all that stuff.
There is, and like Dom was saying, there's something more interesting there with the stinging operation. It's much more focused here. There's a lot of flashbacks, a lot of times it cuts away from something to like whatever. The ending too. I mean, I will say this: I did not like the ending. I thought the ending got a little too. What's the word I'm looking for here? Like. I guess theatrical, or just like I'm literally losing what the word is.
It's like a pretty little bow on it.
Yeah, yes, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, it wraps everything up in a perfect. Yep, there we go. But the entire time watching it, I'm not crazy about this Coen Brothers movie. I think it's good for the most part. But I was sitting there, I'm like, damn, this reminds me of Hail Caesar in some ways. Not plot wise, but like the type of film that Hail Caesar is like what it reminded me of. And I enjoyed Hail Caesar for a lot of reasons, like, performances. I like the style of the filmmaking. I, very much was just having fun, just being in the moment with the characters and just having this director take me along. The thing is, though, is that the Coen brothers, like, they got their style to them and everything. They know how to handle their own written material. And while the Coen brothers didn't write this, I feel like David Russell just did not know what to do with the material at points, especially with some of the characters that are just in this movie later on. Because, I mean, this movie, like we said, it's stacked with actors that I feel like, if we would have cut some of these actors and characters out and just focused mainly on the trio here and really just iron out these details that Dom is even bringing up now that, to my attention, I did not know about, you could have actually had an Oscar contender here on your hand.
There's weight here. I wouldn't say dead weight, but there's some weight where this is the true hard job of a director or screenwriter or whatever, where it's like, yeah, no, we do need to cut the character of Chris Rock. He doesn't really. He has great. Man. He has great lines. He even like does a little like a hint of stand up towards the end.
But he's so unnecessary, and he feels so out of place.
It's unnecessary.
There's some moments where the dialogue he's using feels very out of place.
I'll take 5 dead white men over 1 white woman. That's a great line.
He has great lines like that. And the thing is, I'm more with Steve on this because he was one of the weakest parts about this movie for me.
Washington could have said that. He could have easily said all of Chris Rock's lines.
Could have done that. But I also feel like, man, he's another one too. I am rooting for Chris Rock in his dramatic turn. But he has yet to show something for me to be like, here you go. Like, Fargo season 4 was as close as we got, and that's a TV show, and even then, everybody else around him is outperforming him. But it's like this. I forgot what the Saw movie was called that he was in already.
Spiral,
yeah. It's like, I want you to be... I love the idea of you becoming more of a dramatic actor, but it's his face... It's nothing to do with his face. His facial reactions just not sell dramatic lines. He just can't. He doesn't have the right reaction when selling a dramatic line. It always feels like he is about to tell a joke at points.
Yeah, I think that's where Jordan Peele just goes behind the camera. Jordan Peele just goes behind the camera. That way he avoids that. Sorry, Dom.
No, it's okay. Michael Shannon, Mike Myers, those 2 characters either at least folded into one or just cut them all together. And it's like...
Those are 2 great characters that do not get enough screen time to be great. And they become like Laurel and Hardy.
I'm thinking cold and calculated for the plot, like for the script. Like what do we truly need here? Did we need again hard choices because they could have been great. They are obviously well equipped to be great.
Zoe Saldana's a little expendable. Her character, I mean,
also true, just kind of there to be the object for Christian Bale.
Mike Myers and Michael Shannon, like you said, you could have rolled into one. I would have kept Michael Shannon just because I loved his. I loved his. I'm a diehard Michael Shannon fan. Number 1, number 2. I loved his commentary on birding.
As someone who like was iffy on Boardwalk Empire, but then was all in when Michael Shannon joined. I am a huge Michael Shannon, as we all know we are. As someone who met him in Chicago theater.
You did. The last thing I'll remind you, just to remind you, this is your annual reminder that Michael Shannon is only 48 years old. I still can't get over that, dude. I still cannot get over that. He's 48 years old.
He's lived a life, man. Jesus.
He looks like
he's lived a life.
Yeah, I love me some Shannon. Anyway, go on.
Anya Taylor-Joy and Rami. I honestly just keep Anya Taylor-Joy between those 2 characters, because it's like, or have one of them be a lesser known actor, not taking up as much. Just cut. I don't even want to say I'll say the fat, but it's like rich fats. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like they're not dead weight, they're not bad acting. It's just from a script point of view, a pure script point of view. We don't need so many characters.
Here's a thought. This is material worthy of a mini series. You could have had all of these characters in a mini series, a 10-episode mini series for a 2-hour to almost 2.5-hour movie. It's too much. Yeah. It's too many characters.
100%.
On top of what is already a convoluted plot, throw in there's about a dozen characters, let's say 12. There's a dozen characters here that are directly involved with this plot. And then, like I said, once you bring De Niro into it late in the movie, it's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And at that point, I think a lot of people check out.
Now I've seen a lot of criticism. I've seen this specific criticism, which is every time I saw an actor just show up, it kind of took me out of it. Because now I'm just seeing Rami Malek. I'm just seeing Robert De Niro because they don't have enough time to develop. And that's absolutely true. But directors like Steven Soderbergh have shown us that you can jam pack a movie with all of these high profile faces and all these, personalities, and give them just not a teensy bit, but, give them a token bit to do, but make it really count, and there's other movies where, actors, jam packed with these A-listers all at the same time, and they could, there's a balance there, but it's only because the script and the story allow them to be balanced. Either it's a more freewheeling story where it's a little more fluff, and that's okay, like an Ocean's movie, or something deeper that I'm failing to remember right now. But still, yeah, this is a script that needed serious rewrites, and I think this might have been a case where the studio was like, "No, man, this is Russell. He's got it. He's got it. We don't need to touch this."
He strikes me as somebody who has quite a lot of like creative control on his movies.
Oh, well,
he's known for changing the script like literally the day of like a shoot.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, and like I forgot who it was, but he worked with some actress. You can find the clip online. Him and this actress. It wasn't Jennifer Lawrence or Amy Adams. It wasn't.
Was it Amy Adams?
No. It wasn't Jennifer Lawrence or Amy Adams. It was one of the older actresses he worked with. I think it was the mom in Silver Linings Playbook.
Well, I know that he's a son of a bitch of a director to work with. The multiple incidents.
Not the best individual either.
No, yeah. I know that's I've also felt like some of the reviews I was reading kind of feel like they're skewed because of his how he is also on set, and I was like, come on. But besides that fact, this guy he Christian Bale during American Hustle one time had to put him aside because he was being too hard on Amy Adams when it came to like pushing her on a scene on what to do, and like Christian Bale had to sit him down and tell him to stop. I forgot the actress's name in Silver Linings Playbook, but it is the mother's character of Bradley Cooper. And they just went at it because he kept changing the script like throughout that whole day. And she just said, "Can I just read it one time through without you changing it? Like, can I just read this stupid?" And like she started swearing and everything. And they went at it at each other, like. And it's like it sucks because he made my Silver Linings Playbook is one of my favorite films of all time. I absolutely love that film. It just sucks to see, like, ever since then, I haven't seen something of that quality from him. Not even close. I mean, I even enjoyed American Hustle, but I wouldn't even say it comes close to Silver Linings Playbook for me. And it just sucks that each film feels like it's just been going down. Like, Joy, to me, I'm, like, about the same level as I felt about Joy is where I feel about Amsterdam. And it's just like, man, with this bombing and how much of a turnout it's getting just from a general audience and critics alike, it's like, oh man, like I would love for you to stick around and like make more movies and kind of redeem yourself, because I do like these big drama like comedy movies with like this big A-list actors, and I feel like he's a director that could handle that when he's at least put in check and he's not like losing his damn mind behind the camera.
It really does capture. So for all I'm going hard on it, I genuinely, the politics and the history aside, I actually did have a pretty good time watching it, but it just drags it down. It pains me like a freaking pain in my side how much it dropped the ball in so many other basic foundational aspects that really do like kind of ruin the movie. Not completely, but it's a heartbreaker, man. It's like there's something here, but there's
a lot here. There's just like too much here. There's like too much here.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly.
At the same time. And well, I have a minute to go into this too. I think the other thing, I mean, if you want to talk about like, there's too many characters, plot convolution, which is points I've brought up before. I think the like 3 strikes you're out for me was a lot of the humor in this movie doesn't land. A lot of of Russell's movies, and I have not seen like Three Kings and I Heart Huckabees. I've not seen those movies, and I know a lot.
Check it out.
I know a lot of people love Huckabees too. That's kind of a divisive movie, but I know there's a lot of people who stand on a table for that one. I haven't seen that or Three Kings, but like of Russell's late movies, like in the last 10, 15 years, I feel like this is his most comedically inconsistent because it tries to adopt. I mean, it's like it's a whodunit in so many words, but it tries to adopt this like 30s screwball humor,
like an Arsenic and Old Lace kind of feel to it, and it captures the feel, but it doesn't actually. It's not actually that funny.
You can tell it's trying to do like an Arsenic and Old Lace sort of an approach, like a 30s screwball comedy angle. You can tell that. You can recognize that. I think most people, older viewers especially, will recognize that. But the only difference is it's like not making you laugh.
Yeah.
Like, you recognize the style, but the substance isn't there, and the humor's not there. And I did you guys laugh much during this? Because I didn't.
If
No.
Very
I'm
seldom.
gonna tell you right now, if it wasn't Bale or Roby delivering the line, most of the time those lines hit flat for me. Like I said, those two to me were carrying this movie. Everybody turned in a good performance. Don't get me wrong. When it came to drama or just like
everyone
really,
did fine.
or
Everyone
really
did
playing
fine.
their character, everybody did great. It's just to me, those two, like with the material they were given, I felt like they were taking it and running with it the best.
That's fair. Yeah, the only line that really, I mean, there's a couple scenes, but the one line that got the biggest laugh for me is in the trailer, is when Christian Bale's Burt character takes those eye drops, and right in the middle, he's like, oh, that's quick. Yeah, I love that line.
That line in the trailer,
delivery.
and you remember watching the movie, like, man, why do I feel like this is something Steve would say if he had to like take one of these medications?
Easy.
Oh, that's fast.
Probably. That's me after the first sip of chartreuse on Oscar night. Oh God. Oh yeah, this ain't no Miller Lite. That was a good line. I did like the delivery on that. Now the core trio here is not bad. I mean,
no.
I don't think nobody's giving a bad performance per se.
Oh.
Nobody's doing a bad job here. There's just too much of a good thing. You know, and the more name actors you stuff into a room together, or a movie together, it feels like you come away, the less you really feel and care about them as characters.
Yeah.
I think that's another problem too.
It does have that feeling of, look, I got this person in the movie. Like, it's them. It's Rami Malek, Oscar winner Rami Malek. I mean, that's all I'm gonna do with him, but it's Oscar winner, and it's just like, okay, well,
wasn't that a Family Guy bit? Whenever they get a popular celebrity or whatever, they're like, oh, Oscar-winning actor Rami Malek.
Yes,
that's kind of like everybody's introduction in this movie.
It really
No,
is.
I think
it's Grammy Award-winning Taylor Swift.
I think Police Squad. And she did fine. Let me say this, because there's a lot of Swifties out there. Taylor Swift,
all right,
perfectly fine, even good.
Hey.
And what they did with their character, that was actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
I said,
I'll even give her. Maybe she should have directed this.
Well, it's like I said last episode when we were talking about Don't Worry, Darling. I said Harry Styles' best thing he's done this year is still music for a sushi restaurant. Taylor Swift's best thing she's done this year is still that Carolina song at the end credits of Where the Crawdads Sing. That is still the best thing that Taylor Swift has done in the year of our Lord and Savior 2022.
Was the thing the music video she directed, was that this year or last year? I forgot.
All Too Well was last November.
Wow. Okay, I thought it was this year. Okay.
It was last year, and the Swifties are going to have my head on a stake too, because she does have that new album Midnight's coming out later. Is it this month? Right. I want to say.
Yeah, it is this month, because I remember seeing a tweet. Ooh, a month where a Harry Styles and Taylor Swift album release must be a nice month for annoying people.
On that note, we will take a Zoom-sponsored intermission as we get eviscerated, probably, hopefully. I'd like to think people view this show passionately. We will be back shortly, having a lot of fun discussing David O. Russell's film Amsterdam. We'll be back with closing thoughts, and we'll dive into some Linklater controversy as well. Don't go anywhere. If you could say that after this, or once this Zoom-sponsored intermission commences, we shall link later. 90 seconds. This is Sleepless with Steve. Don't go anywhere. are back from our Zoom-sponsored intermission. It's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Coming to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening at 6:30 Central Time. Talking about David O. Russell's Amsterdam, segging closely to closing thoughts. This movie has been enjoyable to discuss, I will say, from between Dom's background and Joe's a little bit of a soft spot for this movie, too. I will say that this has been an enjoyable discussion. Yeah. I think we all wish this thing was just a little bit better than it was, or at least get to Joe's level of contentment with it. But
hey, I think this movie had it was coming in after Don't Worry, Darling, which just keeps leaving a sour taste in my mouth. That maybe it was thank God I saw Amsterdam this weekend.
To kind of parlay this into my closing thoughts, I'll add this, and it's kind of what I started with too. The first 20 minutes of this movie do a really good job at wrapping you up in the urgency of the story. And then it's that cut to 1918 Europe that's like, damn it, I don't want to see this, right now especially. And then after all you get, this isn't like a 5-minute cut. This is like a 20-minute, 25-minute cut. Then you go back to the present, which is 1933 New York. You go back to the present. And then by then is when you realize that this movie is just like a character marathon. Yep. There's a lot of conflicting motivations, and the whole political intrigue element by this point in time hasn't even been introduced. It's a totally different genre, and we didn't review it on the show. I keep thinking we did, but it's just because Joe and I talked about it so much. I thought about it when I was writing my review. I thought about the movie Barbarian from about a month ago. The horror movie, totally different genre. But that movie has 3 distinct chapters. They're not outlined as chapters, but there's 3 distinct time periods and there's 3 distinct locations. And Zach Kreger, the director behind it, he was like gumptious in the way that he chose to start those new chapters at climactic points in the movie where all of a sudden it's coming to an apex in Detroit. Let's zip over to this jerk off sitcom artist who's barreling down a highway in a convertible
in LA.
How does this connect? You're lost, but you're also intrigued for how this is even going to connect. And then what Craig does is reward you. He rewards you by making the connection feel palatable and deep and attention grabbing. And I think that's one of the best examples in quite some time of almost like a staccato narrative, or at least like a triptych, if you will.
And if I may, even when you do the jump even further back in Barbarian, you're still intrigued, and when you're starting to get the context of what is happening here and everything, you start even getting more panicked about what's going to be happening to everybody in the present now that things have been revealed. And Amsterdam doesn't do that. They're just they're cutting back and cutting forth, and it's like, you can cut back as much as you want. This, to me, is not affecting my emotions for anything happening in the present events of the film.
Exactly. And it's also, I think, the idea, too, that, these characters, they're kind of goofy. The 3 characters, the main 3, Washington, Robbie, and Bale. They're goofy. They also have this sort of lighthearted aura about them. So it's like, I don't really need massive development of these characters. I can kind of peg their types from the present and just the type of people they are as well. But I also wonder, too, if Russell's style has kind of grown stale. I mean, it has been 7 years since we've seen it. And I think Russell, if you think about it, Joy came out in 2015. What came out the year before? The Big Short. Adam McKay.
True,
I almost think Adam McKay's style has usurped Russell's in terms of mainstream popularity. And there's some similarities between Amsterdam and Don't Look Up.
I was about to say,
there's some tonal similarities here. Russell doesn't have I always call it the aura of condescension that McKay sometimes does in his political movies. But no matter how you slice it, the sporadic instances of inspiration in this movie don't justify its lengthy stretches of mediocrity. And for me, and on that note, it's 2 stars out of 4 for me.
Oh, sorry, we're doing the final.
Yeah, I did parlay that into my final thoughts. Joe, then Dom, to send us home on Amsterdam.
I just want to say too, and especially when you brought Don't Look Up. I almost said Don't Worry, but darling, when you brought up Don't Look Up, even that movie, at least with its ending, it stuck by its guns. It stayed true the whole way through. It was like, this is what we're focusing on. We're going to make sure we don't lose that. And that's something I think that I can at least give McKay as a director and writer compared to Russell, who I still think is a great director at the end of the day. I know his last two projects weren't the best for me, and even for a lot more people outside of myself too. But whatever, that's besides the point. One quick thing I want to mention before I get to my final thoughts, though. Cinematography, Emmanuel Lubezki, the guy who did the cinematography for Gravity and The Revenant. Amazing job here as well. Film looks beautiful. It's shot beautiful. If there were time, I mean, as much as I was like getting annoyed by dialogue at points in this film, or if I was like, man, I really just want to get to the next scene right now because this is going on way too long, it at least looked amazing. I could say that. But overall, for me, this is a great movie to go see either at matinee or when it comes to Hulu eventually, since this is 20th Century Fox. I do think it's worthy checking out for performances alone, the look of the film, and for, maybe people might like it better just watching it at home. It just might be a better viewing at home than driving all the way out to the theater and everything. Who knows? For me, it is 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Dom, send us home.
Only thing I'll say about the movie, I agree with everything these gentlemen have said. Only thing I'll say about the actual film itself is that John David Washington is a perfectly fine actor, a damn good one, and the only reason why he is kind of weak in this movie is because of his character and lack of anything to do. The only reason why Christian Bale and Margot Robbie are more interesting is because they have actual character flaws and problems with them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, John David Washington is just there. Like, that's it. It's kind of a guess who's coming to dinner problem, where it's like, yeah, I am this upstanding black guy in this racist time, and it's kind of played out. Very true. That's a story that is always eternally present, but could be made more interesting. Anyway, I'm just gonna cash out here by saying that the actual political message here is frighteningly real. There is a reason why at the end of the movie, he had Robert De Niro copy essentially the same speech as the real life analog here to two-time Medal of Honor winning General Smedley Butler, blessed be his name, who wrote a book called War is a Racket towards the end of his life. It's a speech actually he would give. He would go on a speaking tour and tell that story about how war is a goddamn racket, which is just, imagine a general today doing that about Iraq and Afghanistan. Maybe they should. But yeah, dude, fascism, big money, and are just two things that are just ever present in our 20th century society. If you want to know more about it, look up The Business Plot, which has less to do about fascism or like Nazism, and more about just how big money can easily take over, manipulate disgruntled men, armed men, into committing political violence under a populist leader. But also additionally, I recommend the book Behold America by Sarah Churchwell. It covers the frighteningly amount of fascism that was in this country during the interwar period. We just thought it was all over there in Europe. Nope, a lot of a freaking freak ton of Nazis in this country during this time. During that time, Freudian slip. And then also a great short called A Night at the Garden, only 7 minutes of your time, and it shows a literal stadium full of Nazis just doing their Nazi thing during this time period. And again, lots of parallels to be made, and I'll leave you to cash out on that. So yes, I will give this 2.5 out of 4 stars. I really wanted to give it more, and that's even being merciful from purely film point of view, but I will give it the weighted score just because it touches on something that is pertinent and it really doesn't get a lot of attention. And it kind of sticks me that Russell dropped the ball on something that I hold so near and dear to my heart, which is this topic. But regardless, 2.5 out of 4 stars for Amsterdam.
Well said. I can't wait to watch that Night of the Garden short. Thanks for putting that on my radar too. Dom's going to continue talking here too, because I'm going to start ranting, but I want Dom to elegantly summarize this at least the best he can. I don't want to start this with a rant too. But Richard Linklater released a movie earlier this year called Apollo 10.5, A Space Age Childhood. We reviewed it on the show. We were very high on it. I think it was one of the most fun reviews we've done all year, just because I think all three of us kind of had a collective smile on our faces when we reviewed it. It's not among Linklater's best movies, but it's an oh so enjoyable movie. And I haven't. There's been so many great movies this year. I truly haven't narrowed down my top 10 at all yet. But I'm not ruling it out being on my list. That's how much I enjoyed that movie, top to bottom, in so many different ways. Linklater really did some beautiful work in that movie, from an animation perspective, from a storytelling perspective, and then credit to the voice actors. Predominantly it was really Jack Black narrating. Really warm narration, just a lovely movie. It's on Netflix if you haven't seen it. And this was the third feature that Richard Linklater used rotoscoping technology, which is the technology in very layman's terms of shooting a movie, shooting live action, shooting actual actors, and then animating their movements using rotoscoping technology. So it's very hyper realistic animation. It's almost one of those, and I think I even mentioned this when we talked about Apollo 10 and a half. I said, and I don't know if you guys, I don't remember if you guys agree with me, but I said there were some points of this movie, and again, this is the third time he's used this technique. I said there were some points of this movie where I'm like watching it and I almost forgot it was animated at times. Like it because especially in facial close-ups, it's just very photorealistic, and that's the whole idea behind rotoscoping technology. Well, the Academy and all their continued decades of brilliance over here have decided, the Oscars, the Academy has decided that Apollo 10 and a half is ineligible for Best Animated Feature, which understandably pisses Linklater off in so many words. And he had some good quotes from it that I've been seeing online, particularly from this AV Club piece from William Hughes that I'll dive into in a moment. But I'm going to leave Dom to explain sort of the inner workings of this story regarding Apollo 10 and a half already being snubbed before the nominations even come out for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars.
This kind of gets into the details of what is and isn't animation, what is pure, what is not pure, and a lot of subjectiveness while also trying to be objective with an award, and that is with a competition essentially. And it gets a little tricky. I'm gonna actually have Joe go to the bottom of the page where Linklater had his letter, and IndieWire was so nice to actually bolden the most important parts. And if I were Linklater, I would be pretty pissed because you put a lot of effort into this time-tested animation technique. Let me say this: rotoscoping, that's the big word that's going to be surrounding the score. We're going to say it a crap ton of times. Rotoscoping, it's not just copying answers on your test, right? No, it's tried and true. Rotoscoping, a critical part of animation, used by Max Fleischer, a legend. Like that is like one of the holy names of animation if you're into that, which I'm not an animator, but I'm just so interested by that history. And it was used for so many of early things like Popeye, Betty Boop, a lot of other critical shorts during that animation.
Snow White, which won the Academy Award, but let's not get into that.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, Linklater here, it's just going to town on him, rightfully so. And he says, and I quote, in response to the conclusion that the Academy, quote, does not feel that the techniques meet the definition of animation in the category rules because of the extensive use of live action footage. We'd all argue that this counter to previously established precedents, I'm surprised that wasn't bolded, previously established precedents set by the Academy with two specific films in recent history, Spine of Night and Loving Vincent. Now, I have not seen those two movies. Have you seen those two movies, gentlemen?
No.
I want to say Loving Vincent sounds familiar, but I don't believe I've seen it now.
Yeah. And I'm sure when he said previously established precedent, that's what those are the movies he's referring to. But again, going back to those previous things that I mentioned, it's more of a quantifiable thing. Can you quantify it? But going down here to the second bolded paragraph, although not mentioned in the category rules, caricature, exaggeration, and creative design were used as arguments against consideration. Quote, the character performances in this film not appearing to be caricatured, exaggerated, or creatively designed in a significant way that differs from the original footage. So here is the Academy imposing their reasoning, which are effectively rules in that case, while bringing up the salient point that these were never the rules to begin with, right? So when he says caricature, exaggeration, those are very important animation words that go to show that make, it's the difference between what makes something photorealism and what makes something more animated. And it's a very subtle thing. Talking about animation is like dancing about architecture. How the hell do you even do that, right? But
I might steal that line. That was a good one.
It's a stolen phrase. That's not me, but I think it was like writing about music is dancing about architecture. But anyway, when your face stretches, when a character gets all funny and things, when Bugs Bunny hits Elmer Fudd with a frying pan or something. Take any Tom and Jerry cartoon. They stretch, they exaggerate. A human face doesn't really do that. It doesn't. His neck doesn't go 50 feet across the room and then slaps back. No, it's exaggerated. The Academy here is saying that because there wasn't enough of that exaggeration, because you were essentially just tracing the lines, just being all homework, it wasn't enough to say that it was an animated feature. This is a tough one. Maybe not too tough, but there are some points to be made. But I will let Steve here go into his rant. I'll make his argument and I'll make some devil's advocate. Steve and Joe, what did you gentlemen think?
Let's let Joe go first. He hasn't spoken yet.
Okay. Hey, let's just go to the very top of this article now, because I just noticed within the first paragraph here, there's a certain word here. Let me just hit Control Plus 10,000 times here. Zoom in. Full screen. Let me plus it a bit more. There we go. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Linklater utilized a complex blend of 2D animation styles and employed nearly 200 animators in Austin and Amsterdam over nearly 2 years. Now, look, I'm not trying to say this movie is on the lengths of other 2D animated films and everything. But at the end of the day, if you had to hire 200 animators for a film, there's a pretty good chance it should be considered for an animated Best Picture. But this also goes into... That was
one of my points. Joe just stole. I'm glad he said it.
There's that whole thing. If you had to hire that many people, go to freaking Amsterdam. We were just there with Christian Bale and everybody. We were just hanging out with them. If you had to go and do that, then there's a good case that this film should be qualified for that. But there's also this, and this is something we talked about every time we talk about the Oscars and we have our recap show. At what point do we think that Best Picture and Best Animated Feature should just not be part of the same category at some point? Because, look, man, it's no... Do we really gotta put a Pixar movie against Despicable Me 3 or Minions 2 this year? Do we really have to do that? Do we really have to be oh, man, and the Academy Award goes to... I can't believe it. This is totally shocking. Lightyear. It's just yeah, no shit. And even it wasn't that good, but come on. This is complete. Oh, I should have said Turning Red, because that's actually a really good movie. But at what point is it dude, just take the movies that are actually animated films from Pixar, from studios like this on Netflix that do this kind of style, and just lump them in with Best Picture at this point. We already have some of the Best Pictures that were even surprised from time to time that were oh, I'm surprised they actually got nominated. Or if you actually just want to do the Best Animated Feature, actually do stuff that should be considered for the Best Animated Feature, not just, oh, hey, this made $200 million at the box office because a bunch of kids went to go see a bunch of little minions fart around the screen for 2 hours. Put something like this on here. Put something like that. I'm ranting about just animation in general because the Academy has always looked down on it, and last year especially, it pissed off a lot of animators when they spent 5 minutes just dogging on the category of a genre that they only want to argue is a genre, of just people putting in so much time, amount of time that CG artists put in for special effects for Marvel, Star Wars, all that stuff. But they got to do either hand drawn or even spend even way more time doing it. and we just look at it and like we make a joke of it every time because it's like, well, this is the category that a bunch of kids watch. It's like, no, because we get stuff like this that can actually legitimize that category, and you guys just go, eh. That's it. That's all I gotta say.
Beauty and the Beast got closest
Yeah,
by being nominated to Best Picture.
It was nominated for Best Picture, and the Academy said we are never letting that happen again.
Joe, with your behind the scenes work before we pass to Steve, Joe, can you just find a couple of stills of Apollo 10.5? Meanwhile,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Appreciate it, man. Now, Joe took a lot of my firepower here, which is good
I'm
glad somebody else. I'm good. No, not at all, because I'm glad somebody else sees this the way that I do. I look at Richard Linklater's quote, which is also used in the AV Club. I'll summarize it a little bit. He says, "It is accomplished by the hard work of animators drawing character motion and performances frame by frame, not a side effect of some hidden software or automatic process. We entirely reject the outdated and discriminatory notion that in an industry dominated by the technical advancements in big-budget CGI 3D films, some traditional animation techniques are less pure or authentic even after they meet the technical requirements for consideration." That's a mic drop, man. English major wrote that statement. No, but it's true, though, and that's what really, like, pisses me off about this whole thing, too, is that there are already now have been justifiable examples where the Academy did not discriminate against rotoscope animation in the past. Snow White used it for the dance sequences. That's a big one, too. If you want to talk about legitimizing the whole format of animation, you can make the argument that rotoscope was the one that helped do that to begin with. And Linklater has long been one of the only, I would say, mainstream filmmakers, if you want to even call Linklater mainstream, which I think there's an argument you could. Linklater has been one of the only I mean, first off, I'll say this. I've said this numerous times. Richard Linklater is one of the most diverse and versatile American directors, period. Okay, no, there's not many people who do as much experimental work as he does, and there's even fewer who succeed at most everything he does. And whether it's thrillers, dramas, comedies, animation, he has overwhelmingly succeeded at almost every single thing he's done. Number one. So it's like you're not used to getting somebody like that who has such a varied background and versatile, diverse interests, but he's also using an animated form that isn't common. And when it's something is not common, and dare I say, even on the verge of, at least in mainstream eyes, like Extinction, this is the kind of results you get then. And it goes back to the Academy so often tries to honor movies, but then it's bullshit like this that doesn't make it about the movies. It makes it about technicalities. And I don't know about you guys. I love talking movies. I don't like talking about award show technicalities for categories.
You want to get technical? All right. Joe's showing some behind the scenes footage right now. Keep doing that, Joe. Look how much they're going into it. It's not just they filmed a scene exactly like that and then just traced over. It ain't that. You want to get into technicalities? Sure. Yeah. They did a little, they had to do some because they literal rotoscoping for the faces. But what about the backgrounds? What about the space sequences? What about both real and in the kid's head? What about, the cars, all the stuff that they genuinely did animate?
What about the actual 60s, 70s locations that don't exist anymore? They had to animate those.
It's just referencing, right? It's the same old, just like you do in every other animated look. And again, look at their faces. Joe, could you find just a pause on the screen of someone's face, like a close up on someone's face? It's not like it's a one-to-one hyper realistic look at someone's face. There's shading involved. Look at the shades. It's angled like the 60s. Everything in the 60s was either hyper angled or hyper round, right? It had that look to it.
It's got a chiseled look to it.
Exactly. Just like what a lot of 60s animation was. It's hinting at it. It's the merging of two styles. And because it's a guy looking back on his life as a kid, it's going to have that rosiness to it. It's going to have those, this is what the 60s was like, man, for me, which is the whole point of the movie. It's using the beautiful medium of animation, things we can't necessarily do, but also blending it with the real life as well. Yes, rotoscoping does take a lot. It really focuses on realistic movements. right? But that was a concerted use. That was a concerted use of that. And to just kind of throw it away just because you want to get hyper technical on it here's the thing. Even on those technical grounds, I still dispute it, just straight up. But all of that aside, it's a big waste of the Academy's time and a big slap to this art of animation, which thankfully is far from dying. It's got a lot of life in it. So animation will definitely be fine if this movie doesn't get its just dues. But I will also say that what was I going to say here? That well, I don't know. Regardless, it's just dumb. It fails on this argument fails on all levels. Go ahead.
I'll make one last point, even though we're already bleeding into Sleepless OT here. I'll make one final point. I don't talk country music a lot on this show because it's not really relevant to what we talk about on a regular basis. But like Dom is passionate about jazz, I am very passionate about country music, which I will argue is a tougher lifestyle because there's not many people in this country that want to think critically about country music. Okay. And your boy does over here. Well, the reason I bring up country music is because here's the thing. For years, you can go back to the 80s, there's always been a pop infiltration of country music where you experience pop sounds in country music. One of the main singles that did that back in the day was Kenny and Dolly's Islands in the Stream. And it's only gotten more prominent, and we're kind of reverting back to the center. But all that in case in point, like I think of it like the center of country music. On one hand, on the left side over here, you've got traditional steel guitars, mandolins, a lot of different instruments you don't hear a lot in modern mainstream radio country music, okay? And on the other side, you got synthesizers, you got snap tracks that are common in hip-hop, 808s, drum machines, less authentic instrumentation, more computers. So that's your spectrum right here, and this is the center, okay? Well, the more that you lean towards the right of this, which is towards the more manufactured and computerized music, well, that center is going to inevitably get shifted and move over here. Further out of the picture are mandolins, steel guitars, and classic instruments like that, fiddles even too. And more, now if the center is shifted, those electronic elements become more towards the center. And I feel like that's animation in a nutshell, especially in America now too. You have traditional hand-drawn cellular animation over on this end. You have CGI on the other. Rotoscoping is more like left-leaning in the way, left being my metaphorical center, not political. Left being towards the traditional elements of animation. The more you shift the spectrum to the right, you just exclude all these other formats of animation too, and it becomes the dominant thing. Now, technological advancement is always going to take precedent, but rotoscope is already not a very common animation practice, mainly because it's fucking arduous from all the intents and purposes, especially what Joe just showed. I mean, all animations are arduous, but like rotoscoping is a whole other level. You almost got to make two separate movies in order to make rotoscoping work. And I just am aggressively disappointed yet again. I probably should not put as much faith in the Oscars as I do, and that percentage has already dwindled in years. But like, I just get so frustrated at the fact that like the Academy that's supposed to be bent, hell-bent and predicated on honoring films does more to like tear them down based on technical requirements than it does lift up, especially for stuff like this too, which I just think is totally asinine.
And it's like, the filmmakers we have today broke so many rules set back then that we all praise and go, oh, they're an auteur now and everything. And it's just like, there's so many times like a filmmaker doesn't meet the qualifications of like the Oscar standards, but it's like, should they have to? Film is changing, technology is changing over time. Look how long it took for streaming movies to be considered for this shit. Because like, honestly, we got films like Roma and The Irishman that they were like, okay, I guess we'll finally do it. It's like, well, you should have done it way back when we had Linklater and like what's his name, director of Fight Club, oh my God, Fincher. Like, they were making stuff for streaming long ago, and they still didn't consider that stuff. It was ridiculous.
You know what's funny? This is apropos of nothing, but the Academy could have just avoided this by just not nominating it. To like, it's like,
it's true. They
all these movies all the, Apollo 10 and a half was great animation, but all these movies were, the bad guys.
If they didn't come out and say this, you're absolutely right, Dom. If they didn't come out and say this, the three of us nerds would have to figure out something else to talk about. Number one. Number two, you know what they would do? You know what it would have ended? Me and about 1 million other people on Twitter tweeting during Best Animated Film. Linklater robbed. Go watch Apollo 10 and a half on Netflix. And that would be it. That would be it. The fact
we're still going to tweet that. Like, it's not going to change a damn thing.
Oh, we're still going to tweet that, but now I'm about to be pissed.
I'm glad. I'm actually low-key kind of glad that they just said it. That way we know what they're actually doing and we have something here to correct.
Yeah.
Or at least, harp on. Not just for our sake, but just for the sake of the medium. It's like, yeah, we should address this problem. So I'm kind of glad that they did it. But from a Machiavellian point of view, they could have just not done that.
And I can't even make a good joke. Like when the Lego movie shockingly didn't get nominated for Best Animated Feature, I could at least I know, right? I could at least make the joke I remember in high school, I would make the joke to people. I would say, you know why the Lego movie didn't get nominated? I've told you guys this joke before. Why didn't the Lego movie get nominated for Best Animated Feature?
No, why?
Because the Academy doesn't care about block people.
I think you did say that.
I can't even make a joke along that level.
It still gets me.
It's still a great joke, isn't it?
That was the year they tried showing like, oh no, we'll give nominations out to everybody, and the year right after that they didn't.
Lego movie built like a first party software specifically to make. They played Legos in the software to make that movie.
Well, that's part of why it took so damn long to get it to get that movie made.
I'm glad you brought it up because I have the Oscar rules right here. You can't see it, that's why it's censored. But it says right here, you can't create new technology to be nominated for animated film. You have to use what I used in the 90s. Okay?
You got to use a pencil.
Yeah. No, not even a pencil. I mean, we're allowing CG now. If you haven't noticed, Pixar's been winning a few times. So,
at this point, there's another stylistically subversive animated film that came out this year. At this point now, because Apollo 10 and a half was going to be the one that I wanted to see win. Now I'll go to my runner-up. I hope the Bad Guys takes home Best Animated Feature.
Same. Honestly, dude. I would have taken Bad Guys over Apollo 10 anyway, but just because I just like that movie.
I wouldn't have gone that far, but I would not sneer. Now I'm hoping the Bad Guys wins Best Animated.
I'm still team Turning Red because I just love that story, but in all honesty,
good movie.
In honesty, I would be totally fine if the Bad Guys won as well because that animation style was sick.
As long as Lightyear doesn't even get a nomination, I'm fine.
Oh, it is. Come on,
if Lightyear gets a nomination and Apollo 10 and a half did, I'm going to be...
Bro, if Lightyear gets it and Turning Red doesn't, what the hell?
Dude, I think I might flip out then. I'll be like, okay, like, this is ridiculous now.
Oh, yeah, that's crap. But no, watch, we're debating this all endlessly, and it's going to be damn Minions. It's going to be Minions.
Rise of Gru, dude.
Then we're really going to be pissed.
End this stream right now.
That we will. This has been Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. A really great discussion at the end. Next week, we're talking Halloween Ends. Cannot wait. Evil ends tonight. Not really. It ends next Wednesday.
It ends for me tomorrow. I can't wait.
It ends for me tomorrow, too. What time are you seeing it?
8 o'clock.
Evil ends for me first. I'm at 5.
Okay, all right. Well, I gotta get out for work and everything.
I get. That's the benefit of getting off at 1 or 2 o'clock over here. Yeah, Evil ends earlier for me tomorrow. And I just ordered actually in the middle of the show. I did order the trilogy of Halloween novelizations over here. Nice. I did order those, so I'm going to be reading those like a total nerd over here at like Starbucks in Dubuque. Reading those in public. Like, is this dude reading Halloween Kills, the novelization? I'm fun at parties. So looking forward to Halloween Ends, though. We'll have our review next Wednesday on Sleepless with Steve. And then the final week of October, I am off that day, but these gentlemen are going to recap horror movies in 2022 to commemorate one of the best holidays of the year in Halloween. So they will touch on that for the final week of October. I'll be absent, but these two guys are going to do an excellent show. I already know that. We got a lot of cool stuff planned for you on Sleepless with Steve these next couple of weeks. Highlights posted on this very YouTube channel later on this weekend. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. For Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.